What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Reagan Faulkner Show. So last week we talked a lot about the cultural drift that we've seen in America and a little bit of the history behind how that happened. We talked about legal decisions, we described church attendance, we described trends that Americans have been taking, and then overall the historical context that caused those things to happen, as well as we touched a little bit on immigration law that changed in the 20th century that brought about a lot of our cultural change as well. So each of these changes, each of these contexts, and each of these factors had a direct impact on our culture that has led to our current cultural state, or as you could say, our current cultural situation. I would most definitely call where we are right now a situation rather than a state. So you probably left the last episode wondering, oh my gosh, what can I do to stop this progression of this very worldly cultural state? What can I do to try to bring back some of the aspects of culture and some of the morals that we had just merely 50 years ago or even 100 years ago? This episode is going to be all about what you can do. It's going to be really just tons of ideas. You obviously don't have to do every single one, but just doing one or two or picking a really, really big one to hone in on is a really good way that you can start bringing the culture back one step at a time. It's not going to happen overnight and it's not going to happen with one person, but you yourself taking the step and trying to encourage other people to mobilize and take their own steps is how we bring back what we loved about America and what we still see and value and remember about our country that we want to see return. So let's jump into those ideas. This is going to be a pretty high-speed episode. If you have any questions, you can always DM us or email us. Just keep that in mind as we go through all of these different ways that you can help save America. So, first of all, if you are appalled by these radical shifts in our culture, if you despise hookup culture, if you despise the indoctrination that we see in young Americans and college-aged Americans in our taxpayer-funded schools and universities, you can change what's happening. And this episode is 100% for you. One big idea is if you want to take a big chunk and not really do anything else, you just want to focus and hone in on one thing, you can advocate for a 10 Commandments bill in your state's legislature or with the school board. So we talked a little bit about the lemon test last week. Now, Kennedy versus Bremerton from 2023 overturned the lemon test and has opened the door to putting the 10 Commandments back into public schools, which is extremely exciting. Basically, what Kennedy versus Bremerton did is it changed the lemon test, that 3-part test that we talked about, where anything religious had to have a secular nature, a secular purpose behind it. What Kennedy versus Bremerton was put up a history and traditions test. So items and texts and documents and symbols and things like that that have been used as a piece of history, they've been used for a very long time, or as a tradition within America, are presumed to be constitutional, is basically what the text said or what the case says. So like the 10 Commandments, those were in schools from basically the dawn of the public school system in the United States all the way up until the 60s. Therefore, it would be presumed constitutional because there is a long-standing history and tradition of it. So you can advocate for a bill that would allow the 10 Commandments to go back into your schools. It doesn't have to be a bill that says they are forced to go into schools, but there are different ways that you can advocate this, that the school board will allow it if these are donated, and there are a lot of organizations that can help you find people who will donate money to put the 10 Commandments into schools. So that's just one way to do it. There are a lot of states that have done it. They've been a little bit of legal challenges, but most of them are about to be resolved, and we'll find out whether this is upheld as constitutional, which personally I believe it will be, given how Kennedy versus Bremerton worked out. But another opportunity that you can do if this seems a little too stressful or you're not super comfortable with big legislation that's going into your entire state is to lobby your student government. Now, we have a lot of Gen Z listeners. If you're out there, you're a student, you're in college right now, or honestly, even if you're in high school, I'm sure you can do this. If your high school doesn't have American flags in every single classroom. But what you can do is lobby your student government to put American flags in every single classroom on your college campus or in your public school. what this does is it reinstates that we are one nation under God. It reinstates the ideals and the values and the morals of our nation. And it reminds students that we are all part of one larger identity. At the heart of everything, no matter what minority group you're within, we are all Americans at heart. We all live in America and we all love America in our own unique way. It also establishes that universities, if we are advocating for a student government within a college or universities, that regardless of how much DEI and random minority advocacy groups they put into the school system, they still have to listen to the federal government. They're still bound by the principles, morals, ethics, and values and laws of this nation. So, two really great places to put them in our schools, which I believe most public schools do have American flags in every classroom. At least when I was in school, we had American flags in every classroom here in North Carolina. I don't know about other states, but at university, we don't. At colleges, we do not have an American flag in every classroom. We barely have an American flag in any classroom, to be honest with you. So that's another great way to get started. You can also lobby your school board or your university to ban any single flag aside from the American flag or the American flag and sports flags in classrooms and offices of public places or offices of places of public education. And this can include universities. So honestly, this could even be advocated for in state capitals and in public buildings, to be quite honest with you. And what this would do is it would reaffirm that regardless of what group you're within, what group you identify with, the well-being of the nation takes precedent and takes priority over that. Again, very similar to putting an American flag in every single college classroom. We are one nation under God. So we don't need to have pride flags and BLM flags and transgender flags and all of these random other flags, Venezuelan flags, whatever, Ukrainian flags, whatever country is, we're advocating for that month, whatever flag it may be. We are one nation under God, regardless of what's happening in our world and what turmoil is happening. You know that your teacher might advocate for Carolina. They might be a Carolina fan. They might be a Duke fan. If that's the case. But anyway, what it would do is just stop teachers and professors, and if we did this in state and public buildings, other bureaucrats from showing their political perspective, from showing where they are trying to identify with a minority group and separate themselves from the ultimate American identity. So this is really good. Also, I saw a case, I believe in Seattle, where they were trying to unfurl. No, it wasn't unfurl. That was, I think that might have been in North Carolina. But in Seattle, there was like a flag for, I think, a terrorist organization or something. It also stops that from happening. It stops students from trying to be edgy or, get attention by unfurling these flags for really terrible organizations. And overall, it just brings more unity to the school. It just stops people from being like, well, I don't like that professor because they have this flag. Well, I don't like that professor because they don't have this flag. So it's a really good way to just bring unity and take politics out of the classroom. And even, like I said, out of state capitals and out of public buildings and out of the offices of bureaucrats. So that's another change that you can advocate for with your Board of Ed or with your local state legislature, or again, with your student government association. You could do that as well, because they can change it at least one university at a time if you have a more right-leaning student government and if you have a more left-leaning Board of Ed that may not pass something like that. So those are kind of some big policy changes that can happen. Those are things that you're going to maybe want time for. You might want to have some contacts for. Again, if that's something you want to do, I have had experience with many of those types of advocacy and legislation. You can DM me, you can message me through email, anything like that. If we are friends, you can text me. But there are a lot of other important lifestyle changes, behavioral changes, and attitude changes that you can make that will bring America back to her former glory, one step at a time. The most important one that I'm going to say is for each and every one of you to go to church and encourage your friends to go to church. If we all start going to church and we all start being a part of the body of Christ, we're going to learn the infallible language, the infallible advice and wisdom from our God, who knows everything, who understands and set everything emotion of the history of the entire world. If we go to church, we will be kinder, we will be more understanding, and we will be wiser. So that is a great way to start. And go with a friend so you don't have to go alone, you don't have to feel awkward, anything like that. And again, you're just bringing some other person into the body of Christ and into the kingdom of heaven, but also into your goal of advancing a return to America's moral superiority that we had back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and arguably even the early 90s. You can also start a Bible study at your school or at your college. I know a lot of colleges are kind of inundated with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of student Bible studies, but you can start one with even your friend group if you don't want to go to one of those big Bible studies or one of those Bible studies hosted by a mega church that's on your campus all the time. To start one with like 5 or 6 friends and dive into it. But actually dive into it. If you're a girl, you know that you'll try to have a Bible study or a book club, and you probably will barely talk about the book and talk about a lot of other stuff. So make sure that you actually put forth the effort to do the studying of the Bible and not just the chit chat and the drinking coffee of everything else that I know is so tempting to do when we get together with our friends. But another thing that you can do if you have a little bit more time is start a chapter of a conservative club at your school or college. We've talked about this a lot, and there are so many different groups. There's Network of Enlightened Women, there's College Republicans, there's Turning Point, there's Young Americans for Freedom, there's the Young Americans Foundation, there's, I think, the Young Americans for Liberty is a new one that we just got at UNCW. There's so many different conservative groups, and I'm sure I am missing a couple as well. So you can always start a chapter of one of those, or if you have a chapter of College Republicans, a lot of those will help you fund speakers, and you can bring in a speaker that is a strong conservative, that is supportive, that upholds and uplifts Christian American culture and values, and try to bring that back to your college campus. And if you already have a chapter, then try to get a leadership position. Find out when elections are held. Find out if they actually do anything. If they don't do anything, then I am a firm advocate of getting a band of your most conservative friends together and trying to go in and elect an entire new board and actually make something happen if that organization is kind of in name only but pretty dead and not doing anything in reality. So those are some pretty good things that you can do. It's social, you can have friends, and you can make a big impact, whether it's through a Bible study or through starting a conservative organization. Now, you can also support Christian family-oriented companies. This can include local companies that are in your town or in your community, and it can also include major companies like Angel Studios, where you can go and support these massive new movies and productions that are happening and try to make sure that they don't fall out at the box office. That's a pretty easy one that any of us can do. Go buy a coffee from your local conservative shop instead of going to your mega conglomerate of Starbucks. Also, you can date to marry. Don't engage in hookup culture. Don't support its existence. Find somebody that you're interested in dating. Find somebody that's a Christian, that has the same morals, the same values, and the same goals as you. And make sure you have that Christ-centered relationship where you're dating and you're wanting to get married. You're not wanting to date this person for a couple of months or hang out with them for a few weeks and move on to the next person. Additionally, stop tuning in to companies and productions and shows and movies and things like the Grammys and the Oscars that are just giving terrible people more and more and more wealth and more money and more attention. Just stop tuning in. It's really not that good anyway. And you just don't have to support it. Even if you're rage watching the Grammys, like, you can get enough clips about the Grammys on Instagram or TikTok after the fact. Same thing with like Bad Bunny. Nobody forced you to watch Bad Bunny if you were a supporter of his. Now, if you liked Bad Bunny, then this is America and you have the freedom. And that's what's so amazing about this being America, is that you can watch that. You can watch whatever you want. But for the people that rage watched it, you just gave it ratings for like literally no reason. And we don't have to keep doing that with things like the Grammys and the Oscars and different movies that come out that we may not support. Again, you also can, if those are things that you enjoy, if you love watching the Grammys every year, by all means, watch the Grammys every year. That is your freedom, and we're in America. If there's a new movie coming out with some super liberal person, I think Leonardo DiCaprio is super liberal, but no matter what, I will watch a Leonardo DiCaprio movie, and I'm sorry, but that's going to happen. If you're that person for a different actor, then by all means, watch the movie. But if you're going to complain about it and you're going to complain about how liberalized Hollywood is, then you also have a choice. You don't have to watch it. Make sure that you are supporting, again, companies that support and push for and condone American culture, Christian culture. Don't support these companies that don't support or push for or condone morality, the ones that are immoral, the ones that are full of counterculture, the ones that are full of wokeism and constantly pushing and pushing and pushing wokeism. Think about how Target put out that huge pride display a couple of summers ago, and all the Republicans just boycotted Target, and we saw what happened. It got taken away. It wasn't a problem anymore. Think about Bud Light when they put Dylan Mulvaney as the spokesperson for Bud Light, and we saw all of the long-term Bud Light stands boycott it, and Bud Light went back to being what Bud Light actually is. We can do that for any organization that we don't like, except maybe Starbucks. Starbucks is very well funded by the people that agree with the things that Starbucks are doing. We might not be able to change Starbucks, but a lot of other companies you can boycott. There are alternatives to it. There are other things and other ways to get that product. So there are a lot of things that you can do. There are a lot of different companies that you can support. Going back a little bit to the younger, well, I guess none of that really applied to a certain generation, but speaking to my Gen Z friends out there, speaking to my student friends, my high schoolers, my middle schoolers, my college students, you can bring back American traditions and American culture at your school and your university just by blaming it on America 250. It is the 250th anniversary of our independence. So start hosting America 250 events. If you have like a chapter of a conservative club or a nonpartisan club at your high school or your college, just make America 250 events. Bring in conservative speakers and be like, oh, I didn't know they were conservative. It's just an America 250 event. You can definitely do that. You can definitely play ignorant about who these speakers are and just try to push for these histories and these traditions and these events that really highlight what America is and what our nation was founded on 250 years ago. You can also host just basic American history events to really highlight those things. And like I said, the speakers, just bring in speakers that also highlight those things and just blame it on America 250. Then next year we'll talk about what to do when it's America 251 and you can't really use that excuse anymore. Also, as it is a midterm year and as we are 2 years out from the next presidential election and we're already talking about who it's going to be and it's already a big deal and drama, make sure that you're supporting America First candidates in their campaigns and their elections. Now, I'm not talking about just anybody labeled America First or anybody that goes out saying I'm America First or anybody that's endorsed by America First. I'm talking about candidates that are legitimately America First, and they can fall into the categories I just said. Just again, don't vote for people and support people just because they say that, because they're not always America First. Sometimes they're grifters. And we need to be conscious of who actually is America First and who actually is just a grifter that wants to get elected because it's a catchphrase. Kind of like how people were campaigning off of MAGA and then they weren't actually MAGA. So make sure you're supporting these real America First candidates, candidates that want to support American policies, American ideals, and the American people more than they want to support the ideals and the people of other nations and get involved in other wars. And this can just include things like door knocking, phone banking, and even just sharing their information on social media or recruiting friends and family to do the same. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be donating. It doesn't have to be becoming their campaign manager. Just going out a couple of weekends and helping them door knock. Or if you do want to spend money, which I don't really spend money on candidates, I would rather donate my time. That's what I have more to give of. But you can buy them a pizza if they've had a really long day. Anything like that to support the candidates, because it means so much to them to see people getting involved and for them to know that they're not alone in their campaign, because it can get very lonely for candidates. And also be bold and be vocal on social media. This one is really scary, but it's actually the easiest one if you just get rid of all the doubt and all the fear and you just go wild on social media. Just share policies that need to pass. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been a firm advocate of making sure that the SAVE Act passes, and I have been sharing it all over my story. Basically, anybody that I follow and that I support that's out there lobbying for the SAVE Act and trying to get it passed, they will be on my story. I am constantly reposting these things, and a lot of people don't actually know what the SAVE Act is. And again, we can do an episode about that if y'all don't know what the SAVE Act is and are interested. But there's a lot of legislation going on that kind of just gets buried in the media and in the stories and in the headlines. And it's really important to actually highlight the legislation that needs to be passed, the legislation that is America first, and make sure that our representatives know that we want that. And again, the best way to make people known of these pieces of legislation that are important but maybe quiet is through social media, is through putting it on your story, is through texting it, being like, hey, have y'all heard about this? If you think somebody generally aligns with you, or if they don't align with you, but it's a policy that they would firmly believe in. That's really how we have discourse and how we talk to people and understand them better, is finding that common ground and talking about it. You can also share facts that need to be shared. There's a lot of things going around about the Epstein files right now that are just blatantly false. Again, we'll do an episode on that hopefully very soon. But do not share things that aren't true. And if there are things that are true and you fact checked it, and again, most of the time it's pretty easy to fact check, make sure you're sharing stuff that's blatant truth. Like the White House and the different departments have done really good about information campaigns where they're posting realistic statistics of what the Trump administration is doing, what the departments are doing. And they are numerical, factual, valid statistics that make people realize how successful this administration is. Share those things on social media. Share those things with your friends. Share those things with people who you might not completely agree politically, but that goes with some sort of policy or some sort of thing that they care about and that they will find interesting. And also, share users and repost users that are good, valuable, trustworthy people. Anybody that makes good content, anybody that's being honest and truthful, that's actually trying to educate the public. Those are the users that you should share and repost and try to help them out with their following, or really trust them and follow them. Please, please, please do not take my call to go to social media and like follow a bunch of grifters and people who are like clickbaiting you and things like that. Like, that's where we talk about doing our fact checking and making sure that things are accurate and that things are true. When we follow a bunch of clickbait accounts that are creating AI videos, we're all just as guilty as the left for spreading misinformation and for being ignorant. We have to make sure that when we are talking about these things, when we are learning these things, that we are doing it in a responsible manner, and that we are sharing information that we know for a fact is true, and that we are able to put that information into cohesive words so that we can carry on a conversation with somebody that A, isn't as educated as us and is spouting off blatant false facts, that you can correct them in a very polite way, or B, that if you are talking to somebody that's very educated and you're having a nice debate, that you can hold your own and make sure that you're not spouting off information that's going to be used against you. So those are just a couple of ways that you can be more involved on social media. Those are pretty easy. You literally don't have to leave your couch to do it. So easy. You might lose a couple of friends, you might lose a couple of followers, but at the end of the day, what do you care about more? Saving America or your follower count on Instagram or TikTok? Because personally, I don't really care how many followers I have as long as I can get information to people. But if you're getting unfollowed by people who don't like what you're posting, then there was really no point for them to follow you anyway if you're hoping to try to share information and save America. If you're just on Instagram to be on Instagram and you don't want to share this stuff, then like obviously just pick a different one. Again, America, you're free to do that, but it is a really, really, really effective way to make sure that we can save America and get pretty basic information to large quantities of people with very little effort. Now, putting in more effort, you can call, email, and visit your legislators when important legislation is coming to the fore, kind of like what we talked about. You can share it on Instagram, you can share it on TikTok, you can share it with your friends and text it to them and things like that. You can also call and email and visit your legislators and say, this is important to pass. I need you to vote yes on this. And encourage your friends and family to do the same. Encourage them to get in touch with either the same legislator, the same representative of the same district, or to contact their own personal legislators and representatives of their districts, because those politicians are working for their constituents and you are their constituents. They are employed by you. You are paying for them to be there. And if there's a proposal or a piece of legislation that the majority of your state or your community wants passed, you need to make sure that they know that, because if everything was a perfect world, I guess you should say, everything was a perfect world, if everything abided by the way our Constitution was intended, they have to vote on that legislation because it's what the constituents want. So that's another one. Call, email, visit your legislators, make sure that they know what their constituents want passed and why. Now, many people have this misconception that the only way to help is to donate. They get all of these emails from candidates and the GOP, and their texts are being blown up with random polls, and you can get this Trump 47 hat for free if you donate any amount. And the reality is, you don't have to just pay money to save America. It is way, 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 way better to be hands-on, in my personal opinion. With college Republicans, I would rather have people be hands-on, helping us be at the grassroots level, reaching out to people, than have all the money in the world. Because if you have more people hands-on, you can reach more people hands-on. If you have a ton of money and you don't have anybody that can properly execute it, then there's no point to have all that money. So ways that you can help without donating money or buying things for the candidates, unless you do have that candidate that you want to buy a pizza. Be a precinct chair. That's really important. Be a precinct chair and make sure that your precinct knows who's running, who they should vote for. You can find out who's a Republican and who's not. You can door knock. You can try to sway opinion. Normally, precinct chairs hold precinct meetings where they can learn what their people in that region want and how they can help, and you can recruit a task force to help you get the candidates elected that you want elected. You can also run for a position within your local GOP whenever they hold elections. If you're upset that your GOP is very much not within your age range, and you think that you can bring young blood and advocacy and intellect and whatever it is that you think you can bring to your GOP, then run for a position. Try to get on somebody's slate. That is a great way to get involved, and you don't really have to spend a lot of money to do it, or any money. Most GOPs don't really pay for a lot, or I guess you could say most slates that are running for the GOP, they don't really spend a lot on promotions. It's not like actually running for a real election. You can also choose a different route, and you can do volunteer work. You can volunteer again at your GOP, but another really fulfilling place you can volunteer is pregnancy care centers. These are places that help a women who either don't really have the support that they need in their pregnancy, or that considered getting an abortion and change their mind. And these are really great places to make sure that women don't get abortions, that they have the support that they need, and that they're able to go through with their pregnancy and live a really, really wonderful life where they don't feel like they needed an abortion. They save so many lives, these pregnancy care centers, and they are fabulous, fabulous, fabulous places to volunteer your time. Again, you can also intern with a local politician. You can apply for a PAGE program, or even apply or go to a course with the Leadership Institute. Leadership Institute does in-person courses in Northern Virginia, and they also do virtual online courses that you can attend. So these are really great ways. Also, with the interning, you might make a little bit of money or get a little bit of a stipend, but you can learn how to be a better leader with the courses that the Leadership Institute offers. You can also just learn about how politics works, how politicians work, and get a little bit in their ear, infiltrate a little bit, talk to them about what your community wants to see, ask them why they voted a certain way on your legislation. There's really so many net positives to being an intern and getting involved either with a politician or with a legislator as a page, or even with your statewide GOP. Now, many seminars with the Leadership Institute and other institutes and organizations that have these leadership opportunities, courses, and conventions offer scholarships and financial aid to those that need help and want to attend and grow. And those are pretty easy to find. So if it's an issue of money or anything like that, you can find those pretty easy and still attend. It doesn't have to be a barrier. There's so many ways to fight for the return of American culture. So many ways. This is just the tip of the iceberg, to be honest with you. Again, read books, listen to podcasts, read journals. There's just have a debate on your campus, a respectful debate. There's so many other ways that we didn't even touch on. But I'm going to be honest, none of it's really easy. It's kind of like when you ask ChatGPT, how do I get rich quick? There's not a great answer. You have to put in the work. And it's hard to create change. It's hard to lobby. It's hard to challenge the narrative. It's hard to navigate the bureaucracy. It's hard to look for these scholarships. Scholarships, not so much as everything else, but still, it takes a minimal amount of effort to find the scholarship for these conferences, to apply for any of these internships or jobs, and to campaign for candidates that you care about, like your life depends on it. It's not easy. But the only reason that we have this cultural issue in our country, the only reason that counterculture has advanced so incredibly far, is because, quite frankly, they wanted it more. They wanted it more than we did. They knew what they were doing. They put in the work, and they succeeded. They are winning the culture war. They fought harder, And this is objectively true. This is a little bit of tough love, and I'm sorry to say it. I think, we can all think about what we could have done better. I'm not saying I'm perfect or that anybody did it perfect. We all kind of let our guard down, and this is what happened. But if we put our guard back up and we work hard, like what I'm saying, we can bring it back. Nothing good ever comes easy. And honestly, guys, the life that the left wants us to have, the life that the left is fighting for, is so incredibly hard. Or maybe I should clarify, the woke left, the life that the woke left is fighting so hard for, with socialist policies and anarchy and firebombing anything that you don't like. That life is going to be a whole lot more challenging to live than getting involved politically or posting something on social media or lobbying for legislation. It's going to be so, so much harder to live in the America that the woke left wants to see than knocking a couple of doors, maybe losing a few friends or a few followers on social media, or lobbying your school board and your politicians. Conservative and Christians, we lost the plot a little bit. I'm going to be honest. For a few decades, we lost the plot, but it's time to get back on track. It's time to recenter ourselves, and it's time to hit the ground running. It's 2026 midterms. We have Donald Trump in office. It is time to just fight like we have never fought before. You can step up and you can start something. You can contact your legislators to advance pro-Christian and pro-America bills. You can lobby your student government for all the things that we talked about, for American flags, for the ban on flags besides the American flag and like sports teams flags. You can lobby your school boards to stop the indoctrinating curriculum, or for the 10 Commandments, or to also get rid of any flag besides sports teams and the American flag. If you don't know where to start, I already said it and I'll say it again. DM me, go to reaganfaulkner.com and put in a contact request, message me on Instagram. You can get in touch with me so many different ways. Again, if we're friends and we haven't talked in a while, like literally just text me. It's fine. And we will figure out how to get you involved. We will figure out, if you're from a different state, we'll figure out what your state needs and what we can do. There's so many ways to get involved. And there's so much to do in red states. It's so much easier to get things passed in red states that are a little bit of like checks and balances to make sure that they don't, if they go blue, that not too many bad things happen. But there's also a lot of things that can be done in blue states. We need to start trying to put our effort a little bit into blue states and bring them back and make sure that we can salvage them before it's too late. And finally, it's just we have to get involved in any way possible. We really do. I know that's not this profound finally statement. It's not finally this or finally that, but finally, like, as a summary, we just have to get involved. We just have to do something and make sure that we do save this country. Make sure that we don't waste all the hard work that we put in 2024. Make sure that we win 2026 and we have the next 2 years to try to bring America back. It's time to step up. It's time to start creating mass change in this nation, the mass change that we want to see. I see so many people online complaining that not enough has been done. Not enough has been done. Trump hasn't done enough. My state hasn't done enough. A lot of it boils down to our constituents, and that's the way that our founders intended it. So it's not too late to turn the tide on this culture war and on wokeism and on our failing morals and principles. It's not. We just have to step up and put in the work and make sure that we fight harder than the other side. Thank y'all so much for joining me on this episode of the Reagan Faulkner Show. For more, make sure that you check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook at the Reagan Faulkner Show, at the Wilmington Standard on everything minus TikTok. And just thank you so much for being here today. I know that this episode was a little bit intense, a little bit action oriented, but loved everybody being here today. And again, feel free to reach out if y'all have questions, comments, or concerns. Thank y'all so much, and I will see you on the next one.